Today, I want to talk with you about being decisive. I said earlier that I think one of the things that makes a man is his ability to filter all of the information at hand and then being able to make an accurate and well-researched decision. But to do it in a way that is efficient, that is effective. Of course, the effectiveness is important, and also the timing as well. If you're sitting on the fence and collecting all this data and never actually putting anything into play and never actually making decisions, you're going to get lapped. You're going to get passed up, and you're going to be passed up by those men who are able to be more decisive than you. And I believe that speed of implementation is a key metric, a key skill set, a key ability in being able to be successful. And I've got a framework that's not mine, but one that I've implemented in my life that has drastically helped me improve my ability to make decisions, to be decisive, and then making the correct decisions. And that's called the OODA loop, which is an acronym, OODA, OODA loop, created by Air Force retired Colonel John Boyd. And he used this framework or this process to be able to use it better when it came to aerial combat in his operations in the military. And a lot of LEOs and military members have picked up this framework and used it in order to make effective decisions and then crush the enemy or combat the enemy or accomplish the mission at hand. But it's very applicable in our lives as well. Whether you're in military combat or you're simply trying to get a promotion at work or get yourself a date or reconnect with your wife or connect with your kids, if you want to do that, again, your ability to be decisive, to make decisions quickly and to make the right ones is very, very important. So this isn't going to be a long drawn out thing for you today because it is very, it's succinct, it's clear, it's articulate, and I think you guys will get it here very, very quickly. And there's only 4 steps. So the first one, again, in OODA loop, OODA, is to observe. The very first thing you need to do when you're beginning to make decisions or you find yourself in a situation, maybe it's an unfamiliar or uncomfortable situation, is to actually observe what's happening. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman talks a little bit about our physiological response to threats and circumstances and situations. And in a lot of ways, our bodies are designed to hone in on these things that will keep us safe and protected, and yet we lose focus on everything else that's going on around us. And not being able to have our head on a swivel and observe everything that's happening poses a whole nother set of risks that you need to be aware of. So when you are trying to decide and make decisions about your family dynamic or your career aspirations, you really need to step out and be objective in looking around and seeing what is happening around you. What is going on? What is happening? What is the objective? Who are the people? What are their objectives? What is it they want to accomplish? What do you want to accomplish? What is happening around you? The better that you get at observing objectively, and I say objectively, not subjectively. It's very easy for us to be inside of a situation and get emotionally wrapped up and tied up into this thing and then make a decision based purely on emotions, which we know is not always going to be, in fact, more often than not, if we're doing it that way, is not going to be in our best interest. So be as objective as possible and observe what's happening, what you want to accomplish, how you want to get this thing done, what direction you're trying to move towards, and you're going to have a more successful time moving through this process. So again, the first O is observe. Next, to orient. All right, now you come back to reality, right? You've taken yourself out of the situation. You've given yourself a 30,000-foot view. You've observed everything that's going on around you, and now you're orienting yourself to the situation. So inside of this circumstance that I found myself in, whether it's a dangerous encounter, a natural disaster, an uncomfortable conversation, or maybe not an uncomfortable conversation, or a client appointment, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, now you come back into reality, out of consciousness, and you put yourself in the scenario. Okay, now you're starting to orient. In order for these things to happen and these little pieces to move and everything to be in the right place, what do I need to have in place? What assets do I need? What resources do I need? What do I have at my disposal? What potential threats are visible and present? And what's the priority of dealing with those threats? If you're dealing with, for example, a new project at work, you know that you have an objective. Your boss has come down. He's given you an objective and the task. You know what you need to accomplish. Now in this second stage, it's orienting. Okay, in order to accomplish this new task, I'm going to need to enlist these individuals. I'm going to need these resources. I'm going to need this research and documentation. The threats that are out there is I have competitors who are there. We've already poured a lot of money into this. I've got this time frame that I need to meet, and I don't think that time frame is going to work. So now you're just starting to move the pieces of the puzzle. You're looking at this as a chessboard and really putting the objective there and then moving all the pieces or finding out where those pieces go so that you can successfully accomplish the task at hand. Now, when you're looking at a chessboard, and we'll use this analogy as we continue to go on with this thing, the third component of this is to decide. So now you've observed, you've looked around, and you've figured everything out to the best of your abilities. You've oriented yourself to the situation. You know which way you're going. You know from where you're coming. You know what threats are potentially going to be present and how you might deal with those. Now you're faced with multiple options, right? You're always faced with multiple options. When you're having a difficult conversation, do I take this route? Do I take this route? Do I appeal to this person this way and this other person this way? You always have multiple paths to choose from. And I think this is where a lot of guys get hung up, is they do this loop as the OO loop, right? So it's like constant observation and orientation, then back to observation and orientation, and they never get onto this third component, which is to decide. Very simply, to decide. And this is an act, and it's a habit, and it's a skill set. It's something that you can improve and something that you can get better at. And the better that you are at deciding based on the facts that you have and the information you have at hand, the better you are going to be. The more action you're going to take, the further you're going to advance. Now, you're not always going to get it right, and you're not always going to have all the information. Even if you go through the OODA loop, which is, again, first step, observe. Second step, orient. Even if you go through that just right, you're not going to have all the facts at hand. And you need to learn to be okay with that. You need to learn, because we're not talking about brain surgery here. We're not talking about solving all of humanity's largest crises here in the next 2 to 3 days or week or however long it's going to take you to decide. We're talking about a simple strategy. And by the way, guys, you aren't bound or tied into this strategy. We're going to get to that in a minute. You aren't bound to the strategy that you choose. Let's say that you do decide something, a course of action. Course A, we're going to go down this path. Well, a lot of guys won't choose because they're worried that if course A is the wrong route, that they're perpetually stuck on course A. That's not true at all. It's not true at all. You can come back, you can backtrack a little bit, you can step off that path onto a different path, but frankly, you're not going to know which path is going to be best for you entirely until you start walking that path, until you start moving. And that's the fourth component of this. The fourth component is to act, is to be bold, is to exhibit some level of courage and decisiveness and take action. Simple. This is not complicated stuff. I mean, I've been talking for 10 minutes? Now, granted, I know this is a lot easier said than done. It's always easier to talk than it is to actually do. But I'd like you to consider, in what situations have you struggled to make decisions? Is it having a conversation with your wife? Is it deciding what career you want to pursue? Is it deciding where you want to live, or if and when you want to ask a woman for her hand in marriage, or if and when you want to ask for a promotion, or where you want to take this project, or your list of priorities within business? There's these thousands and thousands and thousands of decisions and choices that we need to make on a daily basis. And your ability to use this OODA loop or some other framework that works for you is going to spell the difference between success and failure, between weakness and strength, between those men who get things done and those who simply talk about getting things done. Don't get stuck. Don't do this paralysis by analysis. Use the OODA loop, figure it out, observe what's happening around you, observe what you want to accomplish, try to be as objective as possible. Don't allow yourself to, or your ego to get in the way, or your emotions to cloud your judgment. Orient yourself to the situation and what you want to accomplish. decide the course of action, and then lastly, act on it. You can act. When you've done this, you can act with confidence and boldness because you know you've done the processes and the steps to get you to that level of action. Now, I'm going to throw a bonus at you here. There's one other bonus letter, I guess you'd say, is to evaluate. Evaluate, right? The decisions that you make are typically not life and death situations. They're not the end all, save all. If you make this decision, it doesn't mean that you can't change down the road, but you have to evaluate whether or not your course of action actually worked. So you've observed, you've oriented, you've decided, now you've acted. Now, through that consistent action, you ask yourself, did the action I take move me in the direction I wanted to go? Did it work? Because we all know and have heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If your actions are producing a result and that's what you want, keep doing it. If it's not what you want, then you have to figure out at some path, at some point, that this isn't producing the desired effect. So you look at it, you evaluate it, it's working, it's not working. If it's not working, you go back to the OODA loop process. Observe, orient, decide, act, evaluate. And evaluate might be observe as well, because you are observing what's happening, the result that you're producing, and that's why it's called a loop. It's not a linear process. It's a loop, and it's constantly going every day, all the time. Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. And through that process, you will push yourself and drive yourself to doing more, to taking more action, and accomplishing more in your life. So there you go, guys. Fairly quick one for you today. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you leave a comment below if you're on YouTube. If you're listening to this on podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, then leave us a rating and review. Go check out YouTube, by the way, as well. You can go to youtube.com/orderofman. We're trying to hit that 100,000 subscriber mark, and we're getting very, very close. So those of you who have subscribed and are leaving comments and engaging with us on YouTube, I really appreciate you doing that. It's been good. I've enjoyed this so far. I think there's a deeper connection between you and me when you see me, and you can make your judgments and decide if, you know, what I have to offer and what we're sharing here within Order of Man is something of value to you. It's just one more way to get the information that hopefully is serving you. And that's my ultimate objective, is I want to serve you. I want to give you the tools, the resources, the guidance, the direction, the insights, the conversations on the podcast that you need to make better decisions, be more decisive, have more success in every facet of your life. And this is a great medium to do it. So anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Again, we'll be back. We've got the 3 shows per week, but we'll be back on Monday. Tuesday. We'll be back on Tuesday for another interview with another successful gentleman who's going to impart some of his wisdom with us. So make sure you subscribe and you'll never miss any of those. All right, guys. Until next week, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.